Assalamu alaikum, Prof.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Zaki.
How are you?
How are you? I'm good. So just give me 1 minute so that
Okay,
I can
okay.
pull up the presentation.
Yeah.
So sorry, it was by mistake. Actually, I thought it's Pakistani time 11 p.m.
Oh, okay. Now what is it there?
Just because when you shared with me the poster, so I just told my daughter to
Yeah.
check what time Pakistani time it will be.
Oh,
So told me, Baba, it is like it is going to be.
mhm.
Uh, so just give me 1 minute. I'm pulling up my presentation and my little. So how are you?
Oh, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. It's really very bad time for due to these attacks in the
That's
region.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone is sad and I have
Can you share,
these.
Prof?
I'm just sharing. Just give me 1 minute. And so let me save as. Okay. Screen, I will not screen share.
Okay.
Should I? Uh,
Can you share the screen now? It's
yes. Okay.
okay.
So the screen is being shared now, and this is the presentation.
Okay.
Uh, is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, just give me an yeah. Okay. So
So I think we still have 5 minutes
okay.
for people to enter and then we start, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. So, hello, assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Dr. Arshid Nazran, I think. Huh? Okay, assalamu alaikum. Dr. Zaki, can you hear me?
Yeah. It is.
Okay, great.
No
Okay,
problem. No problem. Thank you.
okay. You know, sometimes you make a small mistake and it can create a lot of problem. I So when you shared with me the poster, I told my elder daughter just to check in the clock. You know the global clock
Mhm.
that what time it is in Kuala Lumpur and what time. Because I was recently came back, so she told it's 11 in
Oh,
Kuala Lumpur. So I thought, okay, it will be 11 to 12 p.m. in the night. So, but it's earlier actually.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry for this inconvenience.
No problem at all.
So how is everything there? Good.
Yeah, fine, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
Yeah. How is the situation back in Pakistan? Good?
Yeah, situation in Pakistan is good and bad, both. So there is little political stability due to, this interim government caretaker.
Oh, yeah.
And no protests, etc., going on these days. So we
Mm,
call it little stability in terms of that. But yeah, economy is a huge challenge.
mm,
Although the rupee, the Pakistani currency is gaining, strength now, and the dollar has devalued a little bit.
mm,
Also, I think the petroleum prices decreased
mm,
by 30 rupees per liter. So there is some relief we can see to the people. And uh, yeah, but overall, of course, the situation is still precarious. Yes, yeah. And may take some other more time. Yeah. So I'm just thinking if many people have read like me the time, so it might be
Yeah, I
that.
think Pakistan is 2.5 years, half hours.
Yeah,
uh,
yes, obviously. But
Time? Now, what is the time in Pakistan?
now it is 4 p.m.
Oh, 4 p.m. And we have around,
No. It's 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Yeah, five.
we have 3 hours.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, if other participants have read,
I think
uh,
there is no
taken.
chance because,
Yeah.
yeah, if they actually it's a first instance. If we get it 2 hour late or 3 hour late, then it keeps coming
Yes.
in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Husnamin. Can you hear me?
Walaikum assalam. Yes.
Yes, I'm Nisa from Pasru. We are organizing this event, webinar series. So, Alhamdulillah, no worries about the participants. I will notify them in the group WhatsApp. So, inshallah, there will be more coming in.
Inshallah. Fine. So please let me know when you want to. I should start. So I will. And
Okay. We'll
yeah,
formally
we
Yes.
can wait for some time. No problem. People are joining, I think. Yeah. So
we can wait for 2-3 minutes and we can start.
yes. Yeah. Let me this.
Tapi can
Hello. Yeah. Is somebody speaking? I think because
No, we shall start
okay.
now.
Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Okay. I thought Nisa is speaking, so because the mic is muted. Yeah.
So we shall start now. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala Rasul Kareem. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. The respected Dean Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman Kulliya of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, Professor Shukran Abdul Rahman, and the respected Head of the Department of Political Science, Associate Professor Dr. Shaza Shukri, and the respected esteemed colleagues of the Department of Political Science at International Islamic University of Malaysia, and the participants who have joined with us tonight from all parts of the world. I warmly welcome you all to our highly anticipated webinar on religion and politics in Pakistan, contemporary issues and debates, which is actually the first webinar of the webinar series on religion and politics in the Muslim world, emerging directions and future prospects, organized by the Policy and Area Studies Research Unit of the Department of Political Science, International Islamic University of Malaysia. I am your moderator for today's session, and my name is Dr. Muhammad Fawz Muhammad Zeki, Assistant Professor in the Department of Political Science at International Islamic University of Malaysia. Actually, we are thrilled to have each and every one of you here today. So before we dive in, let me take a moment to express my profound gratitude for your presence in this program. Let me share a note about the context and the objective of this webinar series. As we all know that exploring the role of Islam in managing the public sphere and the modern political systems is one of the important questions in the Muslim world today. Ever since the modernity entered the Muslim world, or Muslim world experienced the political modernity around 18th and 19th centuries, the idea of religion and its place in political life has been a serious scholarly concern for political thinkers, scholars of the East and the West alike. However, along with the recent socio-political shifts and significant events that have been taking place in the Muslim world, such as the Arab Spring and its aftermath, it is possible to observe the emergence of new directions, as well as theoretical and strategic frameworks in addressing the question of Islam and its relevance to political realm. In this context, this webinar series tries to capture these shifting trends and prospects. Moreover, it also engages, this webinar series try to engage with this particular theme, both from the theoretical and contextual perspectives. Therefore, I am very much confident as the convener of the webinar that this webinar series will enhance our critical understanding with regard to the subject that we are going to explore throughout this series. This is about the webinar series. And turning into today's session, today we are going to kick off our Religion and Politics in the Muslim World webinar series by exploring the dynamics of interplay between religion and politics in Pakistan. Why we start our webinar series with Pakistan? This is an important question. And I would say the interplay between religion and politics forms the very bedrock upon which Pakistan as a nation was founded. Envisioned as a homeland for Muslims in 1947, The ideological underpinning of Pakistan lies in the principles of Islam, making it imperative to delve into the dynamics of this relationship. The study of religion and politics in Pakistan is not merely an academic exercise per se. It is a journey through the corridors of power, faith, and social transformation. To put it differently, understanding this interplay between religion and politics is essential to grasp the complexities that shape the nation's socio-political landscape. In essence, the study of religion and politics in Pakistan is actually a gateway to comprehend the multifaceted dynamics that shape a nation's identity, government structure, and its role in the global arena. So, although the topic is about Pakistan, I think actually this topic has a global relevance, especially when religion comes into play a significant role in organizing modern societies. If someone wants to understand this complexity, I think the Pakistan is a good case to explore. And so to take us further deeply in the dynamics of religion and politics in the case of Pakistan, we have with us an esteemed scholar today who is none other than Professor Husnul Amin. We are very much honored to have him today with us as a guest speaker. I would like to share a few things about Professor Husnul Amin. Professor Dr. Husnul Amin specializes in social movement studies, religion and politics, conflict and peace studies, and contemporary Muslim intellectual thought movements. He has an academic background in political economy, development studies, and political sociology. Dr. Amin is currently a professor in peace and conflict studies at the National Defense University of Pakistan in Islamabad. Previously, he was an associate professor of politics at the Department of Politics and International Relations, executive director of Iqbal International Institute for Research and Dialogue at the International Islamic University of Islamabad, IIUI. He was recently awarded Fulbright Visiting Research Fellowship, jointly hosted by the South Asia Center at the University of Pennsylvania and Stockton University, located in New Jersey, United States. Dr. Amin was also awarded a postdoctoral fellowship supported by the University of Berlin and the European Commission, hosted by the Berlin Graduate School of Muslim Cultures and Societies. He was awarded a foreign fellowship to pursue his PhD in development studies with further specialization in political sociology from the International Institute for Social Studies at the Erasmus University, Rotterdam, Netherlands. Dr. Amin authored, edited, and co-edited 8 books, including his famous one titled as Observing the Variants of Post-Islamism, Intellectual Discourses, and Social Movements. So finally, let me share a few information about today's program and its structure. Firstly, about the structure of this program. The speaker will be talking, present his ideas for 30 to 35 minutes roughly. Then we will open the floor for Q&A session, and participants can ask questions directly or they can write their questions in the chat box below. Secondly, we have given a link in the chat box if participants want an e-certificate for their participation in today's event, they can register their names. Before I pass the floor to the guest speaker, I would like to invite a representative of Policy and Area Studies Research Unit to share a few words about the unit and its activities. Sister Nisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Fawaz. Now, please allow me to speak on behalf of Dr. Mio Alif. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May this message reach you in the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As coordinator of the Policy and Area Studies Research Unit, IIUM, or known by the acronym PASRU, I am honored and humbled by this opportunity to say a quick word to our wonderful guest, and to such an esteemed audience this evening. We wish you a warm welcome to the International Islamic University Malaysia, to our research unit, and to the Department of Political Science. May our bond and Silaturahim continue beautifully. A very special thank you certainly to Prof. Husnul Amin from the National University of Pakistan for his very kind care, consideration, precious time as our expert guest speaker this evening as a part of pass-through ongoing webinar series on religion and politics in the Muslim world. The Policy and Area Studies Research Unit is a faculty or Kuliah-based center of excellence committed to advancing research and scholarship in the field of political science in areas of international relations, political philosophy, public administration, comparative politics, and beyond. Our mission is underscored by the values of Islamization, integration, and relevantization, which guide our global activities and research engagement. As such, we are looking forward alongside the rest of the global academic community, our dear brothers and sisters of all walks of life, to extend the discussion on religion and politics in the Muslim world. And in particular, through this series, from the key locations such as Pakistan and Arabian Gulf region, India, Bangladesh, Malaysia, the Malay world, and beyond. The ongoing 5-part series for now will continue until this December, inshallah. For us, the concern we face at the moment in human history, where some have described as being post-normal times, gives rise to many important questions, such as how do we make value? How do we make sense of religions and politics at a time where all global orthodoxies are withering? How do we attend to some of the most pressing concerns in the Muslim world, such as better education as well as better healthcare for Muslim women, and in particular young Muslim women all over the world? What kind of politics is needed in our society and between different countries in order to pave the way and safeguard a more universal inclusion as well as suffrage of members of Muslim communities around this world? With some of these questions in mind and many more this evening, in the wonderful hand of our moderator, Dr. Muhammad Fauz Muhammad Zeki, our team at Pass-Through hopes that our time tonight will continue to stir discussion, highlight the important issue, and expose new thoughts and ideas for the benefits of audience. See you again soon at our upcoming events, and please enjoy the distinguished company of Prof. Husnul Amin this evening. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Sister Lisa, for the short note about Pass-Through. And now it's time to listen to our guest speaker. Without further ado, I would like to invite again Professor Husnul Amin to share his thoughts and ideas on the dynamics of religion and politics in Pakistan. And Prof. Amin, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I'm really grateful to PARSU, PARSU, and International Islamic University Malaysia for inviting me, and specifically Dr. Zaki and Sister Nisa for organizing this this webinar. So I'm greatly honored, and it's a great honor for me to share some of my observations, some of my thoughts with you all. To begin with, I will discuss at the very outset, just to set the context and the background. And Dr. Zaki just mentioned that Islam in Pakistani society and politics, what is called the raison d'etre of this country, has been termed as Islam or Islamic ideology. So Pakistan, that is true that it makes a very good case study for this very complex relationship between Islam and Islam, politics, society, and the state. As we all know that during the colonial era, the British colonial period, and what we call the pre-partition, Pakistan came into being, in in August 1947. So before that, there was a partition movement, and that movement, actually, the slogan emerged that, there is not one nation but two nations living in the subcontinent. One is the Muslims, and the other is the Hindus. So although there are problematic dimensions of this ideologies as well, and people have been talking about it, discussing this ideology, but this became, the prime mover of the movement. And some people dragged this, this discussion to Muhammad bin Qasim, when in the early 8th century, he attacked Dabal, then now Karachi, and he brought Islam to this country, to this territory. And for some people, it starts with Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed and his jihad movement, and then for others, it is actually the independence struggle, which was in 1857. Some people call it mutiny, the Britishers, but we call it the independence. So the War of Independence, 1857. So after that, a series of events and movements, it actually brought Islam, as depending on as we define it, into the public life and to the discussion. So that's why I wrote this, that it's in the very genesis of this country, and it has become a very, very sensitive and contested issue in the the formation, in the nation building process in this country, and even the state building as well. The second thing is the constitutional development. After partition, when the constitution making process actually started, so the very first thing during when Liaquat Ali Khan was the prime minister, we had this objective resolution. We call it Qarardad-e-Maqasid. And that was in 1949. It was passed by the Constituent Assembly, that the objective resolution actually defines the basic parameters of legislation in Pakistan. There could be no legislation which is repugnant to Sharia and which is not in line with Islamic law, Islamic Sharia, Quran and Sunnah. And again, defining how do we define Sunnah and the Hadith specifically in that. But again, it became actually the preamble of the Constitution. The third aspect, so that is actually the legislative and the constitutional dimension of Islam in Pakistani politics and Pakistani, nation building and state building. And then we had like the constitutional process. We had the 1956 Constitution, 1962, and then specifically the 1973 Constitution, which is still actually prevalent. In that Constitution, we had this, the name of the country, Islamic Democratic Republic of Pakistan. And then we had several, several legislations which were bringing Islam into the discussion. Again, in the era of Ziaul Haq, this process of top-down Islamization, Islamization of education, Islamization of laws, Islamization of banking and finance, and all you just mentioned, this Islamization of knowledge, for example. So all these Islamizations were done during Ziaul Haq's period. So there is a consistent effort in both the nation building, state building processes to bring Islam into the public life. Religious ideas in the popular politics. So even if there are secular politicians, there were used to be those also used Islam as an important key variable in their politics. For example, Bhutto, he had this Islamic socialism. So, he added this attribute to socialist thought, that Islam is there. And even in the Ayub Khan's developmentalist state model, Islam was there. He brought, a very important intellectual scholar, Dr. Fazlur Rahman, the professor of Islamic studies in Chicago, who also passed away over there. So he was here to support, with some enlightened religious ideas, the process of his state developmental approach. And then in Ziaul Haq period, I just mentioned, we had this Islamization program. In the 80s and 90s, again, when the democracy was restored, again, Islam became a discussion in the public life. And later, when Musharraf came in 1999, he brought this enlightened moderation, enlightened Islam, which was actually canceling out and, compensating for what he said of the aftermaths or the issues created by the Ziaul Haq's Islamization program. And then we had this Imran Khan, who brought, the Riyasat-e Medina discussion into politics, creating the state of Medina or, resembling to that. So, I mean to say that Islam in public life and in the entire process has always been there in the religious ideas as well, in political life and in the popular politics. And then we have religious institutions and political mobilization. So religious institutions, both, in the public sector. So we have this Council of Islamic Ideology, which is actually a constitutional body to support the legislation and, see whether some laws which are enacted, whether these are according to Islam or not. All different sects and religious interpretations are represented in that body. We have a Sharia court as well, which is having certain mandate, very limited though. We have an International Islamic University, Islamabad, like IIUM. And then we have Islamic Research Institute and other such institutions. Recently, Rahmatul Lil Alameen Authority by the, previous Prime Minister Imran Khan. So there is an effort to institutionalize Islam in the public life as well. And in the private life also, you see both at the both aspects, political mobilization, religion has always been used by various political forces, both secular, liberal, everyone, using different interpretations to mobilize society and popular will in their support. But also, the important institutions in the autonomous private sector, and these are most important are madrasas, Islamic religious schools, the seminaries, which are actually imparting or, transferring the classical fiqh knowledge to the new generation. So there are roughly 20,000 or more than 20,000 madrasas, mostly Deobandis, but also the Sufi, Barelvi, Salafi, Jamaat Islami, and Shia sect as well. So these are, graduating religious ulama and clerics, religious functionaries as well in these institutions. So this is how religion Islam is in the public life. I just wanted to give you a basic context and a background. The second, which will be the main focus of my discussion, is I now think that we are actually, all of the religious parties, they had some kind of jihadi militant wings, although they themselves were not participating directly in any jihadi project. But almost all of them were having some kind of, offshoots and, organizations, some in the student wing, some in, for example, Jamaat Islami was having an active jihadi wing in Kashmir and also in supporting some jihadi organizations in Afghanistan. Similar was the case with JUI, which is the Jamiat Ulama Islam Fazlur Rahman group, which is the party of the ulama, the religious scholars. Also, the Salafis, they were having organization, they were supporting the jihadist ones. So some were actually sectarian in nature and very active in sectarian violence and politics. Others were busy in Afghanistan and other places of the world. But we are now, we can see specifically after 9/11, that gradually, steadily and gradually, these parties have moved away from this jihadist, struggle to a more political kind of struggle, more peaceful, political, and they have actually distanced themselves from those active political jihadist organizations. So I think this is the first development, which is, I think, a cross-cutting theme, and almost all religious parties have almost distanced themselves. And there were, of course, I don't think there is any conceptual development on that. Let me explain it. That, for example, they have revoked or they have reinterpreted their previous positions on jihad, for example. But the case is that due to political pragmatism, due to recruitment process and the global conditions, they have moved away gradually from supporting various jihadi projects in the neighboring countries, for example, or inside the country, and have entered into the mainstream political discussion. So that is the first trend which I wanted to highlight. The second trend is the blurring of ideological categories. Honestly, if you ask me now that who is secular and who is Islamist or Islamic, it's really very difficult to do that, this blurring of categories. For example, there were some nationalist, Pashtun nationalist political parties which were famous, popular for their secular, very proclaimed kind of, very visible public posture that we are secular. In their manifestos, it was written. But they have deleted that term, that they are secular, but they don't claim it. The leaders are actually more into, manifestations which are religious in nature. Some are supporting madrasas as well. Some are opening their own madrasa. I can give you examples. So even Imran Khan, who could be, he was just in the middle of both the right and the left, but it's very difficult to define or categorize or label people on the right or on the left side. So people have moved away from their, very extreme binary kind of ideological positions, and the blurring of categories has happened. So it is like now academically problematic how to, for example, label a certain party as secular or the other ones an Islamic. So the Islamist parties are becoming more secular. There are instances and examples of that. And the secular parties have become more Islamized and, getting influence from Islamist ideas as well. So maybe it's one impact is of the whole discussion in the region, the Iranian Revolution, and then the crisis in Afghanistan, and then this assertion of Islamic identities at various forums globally and regionally, the developments, maybe these are impacting all political parties, not just the Islamist ones. The third trend, which has become more salient and visible, is the inclusion of women in religious politics. And till 80s specifically, and in mid 90s, women was assumed to be, she cannot be, a leader in the Islamists and the ulama's discussions. And they had, written a lot of literature, Islamic literature, just to interpret certain hadiths that, the women cannot be a leader of the Muslims, and there are bans, etc., on our public visibility, specifically the political life. But during Musharraf period, as the opportunity spaces opened, in parliament, and there was 33% quota for the women, so every religious party actually responded to that. So the Jamaat Islami, which is the mainstream Islamist party, and the Ulama party and the Barelvis and the Sufi, everyone actually celebrated and actually welcomed it by including their women leaders in the process. So that is another main discussion. Maybe they be wearing hijab, or niqab or whatever in their political life, but of course they are part of the mainstream politics, both in the parliament as well as in the public life. Despite all these three developments, the popular will is not with the religious parties. Of course, we can discuss this on and for many several hours. What are the reasons? But these parties are still in the range of 3 to 5 to 10% of the total vote. All parties, all religious parties, they can secure, and the number of seats is seats in the parliament. It's even lower. So the ulama party, it is actually more in the Pashtun belt, specifically more in the Pashtun south of KP, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and some parts of the Balochistan. So some culturally conservative, and underdeveloped areas of the country, they have the presence of the ulamas, and they have their popular support over there. The Islamist party, Jamaat Islami, it's more having some vote bank in the Pakhtunkhwa province, specifically in the northern areas, the northwest area, the Dir, Swat, and the Malakand region. But it has almost lost its public support overall in the country. Specifically in Karachi, they have some new, vote bank, and in the Gawadar area in Balochistan, there was a political struggle, a social movement by Maulana Hidayatur Rahman. So I mean to say, just to summarize it, there are isolated pockets of popular will supporting either the ulama or the Islamist political Jamaat Islami, but there is no popular will which is actually supporting. So they are not in a position to win, for example, elections and to form a government without, forming alliance with any major political party. And we have this, the Barelvis or the Sufis, who are predominantly, popular in Punjab and some parts of Sindh. But of course, they again, although they can have 10,000 to 20,000 votes, they secure in each constituency, but it doesn't amount to, winning a seat in the National Assembly or in the Provincial Assembly. So there are few seats they win as well. The fourth trend is, the blasphemy and, the discussion around the blasphemy specifically happening in Europe and, against the persona of the sacred Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu and the Holy Quran and other scriptures. So these discussions have deeply influenced Pakistani politics as well. And those discussions over there and the blasphemy laws in Pakistan, which actually amount to several, unfortunate, tragic incidents, because innocent people were killed when the blasphemy. Some were, of course, the Hafiz Quran, for example, but they were killed that he has actually, blasphemous event by, against the Quran. So some non-Muslims were killed as well. Some are in prisons. So it has become a huge discussion, blasphemy, and everyone is actually afraid of it now. So if you are just talking in public, you should be always watching your words, that any slip of tongue, for example, or any mistake can lead to public lynching, or you can be imprisoned, or you can, and if that has become a huge discussion in the political life as well. The fifth thing which I wanted to mention is the post-Islamist, which is actually my main work of research and area of research as well. The post-Islamist, I mean, the project and condition, both in the secular politics as well as the Islamist and ulama politics, that they have retreated from creating an Islamic state. So if you listen to their speeches now, they will be occasionally maybe referring to Islamic State and Sharia, but not a lot to that. It used to be the predominant discussion in the 80s and 90s and even before. But now more discussion is about economy and, welfare state and Islamic trickle down, for example, market, So these discussions are there, but I can see a major retreat from creating an Islamic state. And then these are within the movements, I am saying this trend. But outside the movement, there's a huge criticism by some of the, post-Islamist scholars. So these are scholars who are used to be Islamists in their past, but now they have become popular scholars in academia, in public life. Some are public intellectuals, some are writers, columnists, some are anchors, some are religious scholars. One of the key scholars, Ghamidi, was in Malaysia for several years in exile, and then he moved to Dallas, Texas. So, but he is one, but there are several others among the Deobandis, among the Salafis, among who may be called, criticizing this whole idea of Islamist project, even Islamization of knowledge as well. And they are coming up with new conceptual developments, specifically related to Sharia and its interpretation regarding hijab and niqab and these, and jihad and others, and non-Muslims and the citizenship questions, for example. So this whole discussion has, I think, there are considerable academic developments in that area. Most of the work is done in Urdu, and some is being now translated into English. They are busy in social media and very popular among the women and specifically the young, modern educated people. So there's a post-Islamist trend. If you will ask further, I can respond to that. The last thing is, I used to call it the Erdogan effect in politics. And I don't have any scientific empirical argument for this, but I can just share my analysis that this popular will of Erdogan and his various, specifically economic development in Turkey. So I'm not talking of now, but just 10 years back when he became very popular there, it actually created a lot of impact on Pakistani politics as well, specifically the religious politics, and more specifically on the Islamist politics. So, there are still discussions going on within the Jamaat Islami, for example, the Islamist movement, that, if Erdogan can win a victory and, he can sustain popular will in Turkey, why can't we have that in Pakistan as well? And I think this Erdogan effect has spread to many countries, to Tunisia and to Egypt as well, and to different countries. And this has created some impact, although I think due to several structural, organizational, and ideational factors, here it couldn't become a mainstream movement. But I think to some extent, Imran Khan's political party, which was the Pakistan Justice Party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, so the movement for justice, it had some traces of this Erdogan effect as well, but due to various inconsistent policies and issues and problems, he couldn't actually consolidate what I call this Erdogan effect in Pakistani politics. So this is how what I see some major trends in the domain of public life, where actually religion Islam is interacting with the political life specifically and the public opinion, and how the religious political parties, they are responding to that. And now the final thoughts, there is just to connect to this discussion of blasphemy and the tawheen of the Prophet, peace be upon him. There's a new party which is called Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, and it actually consolidated several other organizations and parties which were, so it's more having this Barelvi Sufi orientation. It has become actually a popular movement, I would say. I don't think they can secure a lot of votes and a lot of seats in the parliament, but it has become a talk of the street and town, and it has become like popular, even if not numerically, but has become a popular, movement across the country. And that is the idea is that there shouldn't be any compromise on the respect and the sanctity of the Prophet and the sacred scriptures, etc., etc. And that has become a political discussion as well. The Deobandi ulama. So when I say the ulama, they are actually the Deobandi ulama. Although there are ulama in the Barelvi Sufi politics as well, but when we say ulama, we actually mainly refer to the elite political, religio-political ulama who are in politics. And that, pre-partition Deobandi Madrasa movement, Tablighi Jamaat is actually part of the Deoband, and they have madrasas, religious schools, seminaries as well. And their main political manifestation is in the Jamiat Ulama Islam. So it is securing some votes in the rural areas, but specifically in the southern and the northwestern part of Pakistan. But again, it is forming alliances with other parties. And if you recall my previous discussion, all those trends are actually incorporated, internalized by the ulama as well in their political life. The political Islamists, they are more now busy in the welfare work. They have this Al-Khidmat Foundation. Khidma, which is actually the service to humanity. It is really doing some good work and people are appreciating it. People trust it as well. But there is a very funny, popular saying that, people trust the Jamaat Islami in donations, but they do not trust them in votes, So people do not give them vote. But if you say, for example, you ask even a secular person, whom should be trusted for these donations, for example. So maybe majority of them would say Al-Khidmat or the Jamaat Islami, because these people are honest, good, pious. And the sadaqah, charity, it will go to the deserving people. It will be delivered over there. So it is there. But in terms of voting, unfortunately, they couldn't actually secure. And if you compare the political Islamists, the Islamic movement with the Deobandi ulama, for example, there are strange and interesting contrasts as well. If you will ask, I will shed some light in the Q&A session. But the ulama have become more grassrooted actually through mosque and through their life in the street, but specifically in the villages and those areas. The political Islamists, as everywhere in the world, Egypt and other countries as well, they are more urban, modern educated, lower middle classes, including women and other sects as well, Shia, Sunni, both, but unable to secure good votes. But still, they have a lot of presence in the welfare sector. And I think that sector has become a huge sector. It is like billions of rupees in Pakistani currency. So sometimes maybe they are managing like half of the budget of a province, for example, in the entire country. So they have this ambulance service, and they have the orphanages, and they have these all services which they are contributing to. The last thing is the violent trends in the name of Islam. That is, although there is, a decrease in the sectarian violent parties and, organizations. For example, there used to be SSP, Sepahe Sahaba Pakistan, which was a very anti-Shia movement and Deobandi movement. So it has, retreated from violent actions, and now it is mostly it's not doing any more any violence. Other the Shia sect and the Barelvis, all of them, they have some silent movements, and also the Salafis as well, Jamaat al-Dawa, but some were busy in Kashmir, that front is closed as well, and some were busy in different other parts of the country. So I think relatively we are at peace in this context, but there is a huge movement which is called Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP, and occasionally you see bomb blasts and suicide attacks. They are busy there. They are finding recruits as well and funding as well. But overall, we can see there is, a march towards a peaceful existence and tolerance as well. And I'm speaking only of this violence, this violent category. If you are talking about the other kinds of intolerances, for example, so the list is huge actually, but I'm just talking about it. So I think I should stop here, and I think I took enough time, and if you have any questions and comments, I am available.
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for your insightful observations on the shifting trends and future developments about the Pakistan, the interplay between religion and politics in the Pakistani context. There are a few questions, and a few of our participants have asked. I would like to channel it to you. And first of all, taking the privilege of a moderator, I would like to ask the first question to you. And I will list the questions, and so you can take it into account as a bunch of questions, and you can answer it collectively. I think the one of the main question which coming from myself, that is that you said Sufi politics and ulama politics, such terms you used frequently to refer to the Pakistani political landscape. In general sense, there is a meta narrative which is prevailing that says that Sufis are apolitical and they are peaceful. But when I was listening to your talk, which is a little bit, let's say, an irony, or it's your idea, the ideas that you presented is just goes contrary to this meta narrative. Sufis are also engaged in politics. They have their own vision of Islamic State, and ulamas have their own vision of Islamic State. And is that a unique case for Pakistan compared to the other Muslim countries where you can find no such engagement in politics from the on part of ulama, direct politics, or Sufis, when it comes to the Egypt or any other major Muslim countries? And what is your observation on this part, the impact of Sufi politics, what are their narratives especially? Is they similar, the discourses are similar to the Islamist political parties like Jamaat-e-Islami, or they have a different vision? This is one question from myself, and there are two other questions I would like to channel it to you. And one of our brothers asked that Professor has mentioned different political eras of Islamic thought used by different governments in Pakistan for public life. And you said that all the governments more or less use the Islamic discourses to justify their policies. And he asked, what is the professor's opinion? What is actually the turning era, the turning point of the history of Pakistan, which actually changed or let's say changed the political culture of Pakistan in such a setting? In the post-independent Pakistan, actually, what was the turning point turning point that pushed Pakistan in such a continuously Islamization direction? This is his question, and this is the second question. And I'd like to share the third question, which is he asked a general question that what is the relationship between Pakistan and Bangladesh? Is it still bad, or has the relationship improved? Is there any effort to cooperation between these two Islamic countries? Actually, I want to contextualize this question to put into a frame that even though the Pakistan emerged as an Islamic country, Islamic Republic, then there is a popular narrative that it has actually considered the Bangladeshis as a second-class citizens when it was a part of Pakistan. So it asked its independence from Pakistan. So what's the role of Islam in this case? This is the question I think he tried to ask. This is a background that the questions come from. And These are the three questions. First, we can, I think, Prof, if you can answer these three.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. So, responding to your question first. Excuse me. When we say Sufi, it can mean, different things to different people. So I'm sure everyone is aware of that. So Sufi is maybe somebody in sitting in isolation and doing the zikr, and a very pious person, and people go to him or to her to ask for prayer and like that, and totally abandoned public life and political life. So we have Sufis like that as well. There are people used to, and interestingly, a good number of the political elite as well as the power elite, specifically the military generals and the senior bureaucrats, they all have one kind of Sufi somewhere sitting in the mountains and maybe in the cities as well. And they will regularly visit and pay tribute and ask for zikr, etc., etc. And there is a problematic relationship between the Sufis of this kind, who have abandoned political public life, but they are indirectly actually influencing. So just to cite one example, our previous Prime Minister Imran Khan was famous for this, having connections with Sufis. So he had a Professor Rafiq Akhtar is a Sufi mentor, and he would regularly visit him. And then there were others as well. And then his own wife, Bushra Bibi, she was her mentor as well, her Sufi mentor as well. So there's a lot of mystic, the role of magic in that as well. And this foretelling and good fortunes in politics and political life. So let's segregate that category from the other one. The second category of the Sufis is those, families, which we call the peer families, in politics. There's a very famous book, Peers in Politics. So, or very famous politicians in Sindh and Punjab, both in People's Party, which is a secular, progressive, liberal party, and the Muslim League as well. We have these very popular politicians who come from these different families who are having these shrines and, descendants of some, what they call waliullah or some religious figure as well. So that is another facet of Sufism in politics. But these Sufis, if we may call them Sufis, they are actually in all political parties. Okay, so by virtue of their affiliation, descendants from a religious family in the past are, owning, for example, they possess these, shrines of their grandfathers, for example. People visit them, and that becomes actually a political following later on. So that is the second dimension. The third aspect is their own political, manifestation in public life. So we used to have Jamiat Ulama Islam, Jamiat Ulama Pakistan. Okay, that was the Sufi Barelvi political party. And one was the Niazi group, which was mostly here in the Punjab region, and the other was I'm just forgetting the other name, which was actually mostly based in Karachi, and Nurani group, Zain Nurani. So the Nurani group was the JUP Nurani group. It was popular in the urban middle classes in Karachi. And some people, say, historians also say, political historian, that, the ethno-political movement, the Urdu speaking, what we call Muttahidda, that used to be called Muhajir Qawmi movement. It was created by the military establishment just to dismantle, the support of major mainstream political parties, including the Barelvi party as well, which was actually a centrist party and having presence over there. So, the presence and penetration of Sufis in public life, in the state and the power corridors, it is actually enormous. if I can just have the opportunity to take you around and just show you different kind of Sufis and their political connections and with the power elite, and the affluence in terms of wealth and land, and other capital, for example, that is actually huge. And you can just see their vivid and direct and indirect influence on Pakistani politics, state, and these processes. So these are at least 3 dimensions from which actually is your question answered?
Yeah. Prof, considering the time factor that we have to finish it in
Okay.
minutes, I would like to ask an important and interesting question that some of our brothers asking. What is the role of military in politics of Pakistan in terms of just they just put it like this, that what is the role of military in Pakistani politics? I would like to add something to that question, saying that since I have very familiar with the discourse that there is an argument that military is using different religious factions, allowing them to operate for their own political manipulations and to embark on their own political power struggle with politicians. And so the religious part is one way or the other scapegoated by the military. So what is your perspective on this actually, and what is your observation as an insider to this whole debate?
So I think this is an open secret actually, that both religion and the military having impact on politics, and they both control as well the politics. So I don't think it is a hidden thing. Everyone knows that after partition of this country, two problems we had, manufacturing defaults we had. One is this very problematic relationship of Islam with the state. So are we secular, are we a nation state, or are we an Islamic state? This debate is going on and on, okay? And a lot of confusions about, because Pakistan was a artificially created, constructed identity, because there was no Pakistani identity before partition. So, but if we use, Anderson's imagined community, Islam or religion can also be the basis of an identity, but then you have to do a lot of things to make that the basis of an identity formation process. And the second is the role of military. So the military has been controlling politics directly, indirectly. It has been, in the history of this country for more than half of its life, it has been directly controlling Ziaul Haq, Ayub Khan, Musharraf, and then indirectly Sham democracy, all political parties, and specifically the religious political parties specifically. So we had this Islami Jamhuri Ittihad, and which was actually funded also and backed by the military at that time. Later on, every elected government is just completing 2 years or half of its term and sent back. And of course, it's actually the role of the military establishment as well. So the recent episode was that of Imran Khan. And so I think it's very much everyone knows it. We cannot hide it, and we cannot actually overlook that. Yeah.
There is another question. I think we can make it as the final question since we have reached 9 o'clock. And what is the relationship between the Deobandis and Tabligh Jamaat? Because I also would like to ask that generally the Tabligh Jamaat are being considered largely confined to the mosques, and they are largely a Dawah movement. And you say that Deobandis has their own separate political parties. In that sense, how the Tabligh Jamaat and Deobandis relate each other in the Pakistan context? Can you just shed a light on that issue?
So let me quickly add my comment here, respond to this. So for me, the Deoband movement is one of the largest social movements in the world, in terms of its presence in society, in academia, in the religious life, mosques and madrasas, and influence as well, okay, both numerically as well as in terms of its social, political outreach. So it's really very interesting that the Deobandi Madrasa is initially in the pre-partition colonial period, it was actually a religious school, Islamic religious school, started under a tree, for example, and then there were no resources with them. And naturally, it split into three different directions. So the madrasa graduates coming out who are supposed to be religious scholars, for example, some of them went into politics and they formed this Jamiyat Ulama Hind, for example, which actually became Jamiyat Ulama Islam here in Pakistan. And so that became all those students coming from madrasas, the madrasa graduates, some are having this inclination to politics. So they are going into, the Deobandis political parties. The religious schools remains the same. So the religious teachers, they remain isolated from politics, or they are doing politics as well, but mostly they are actually imparting religious education. And then this Tablighi preaching movement, which is also a huge movement actually in Pakistan and Bangladesh, also in India as well. It's purely Deobandi Tablighi Jamaat, which is having this, it's an inviting society, the proselytizing and preaching Islam and the basics of Islam. But mind that there is another movement, Tablighi movement as well of the Barelvis, and that is called Dawat-e-Islami. So it's very similar to Tablighi Jamaat. It's not very successful, not very huge in terms of its outreach, but still there is a Dawat-e-Islami which is actually similar on the pattern of the Tablighi Jamaat. So the Tablighi Jamaat, which is the popular one and which we are talking about, it is actually emanating from the Deobandi school. And one last thing which I would like to add about the Deobandis, it's really very dynamic in this sense that it's very fluid. So the Deobandis in Afghanistan, they are the Taliban, and having this militancy, jihad, and that thing. Deobandi in Pakistan, they are political and having this Sharia in the political life and, Islamic State or Sharia state and these things. And Deobandi in India is supporting a secular India, So it's very interesting in the same region in South Asia, if you include Afghanistan, which is part of SAARC now, although not in that sense, in the geography sense, but it's part of SAARC. So in one SAARC, you have three different kinds of shades of the Deobandis, And I think this is one success of this Deobandi movement. It's very grassrooted. It is having access to the street through the mosque and, the prayer leaders, Imam and Khatib. Unlike the Islamists who are having this very centrist kind of, abstract idea. So if you just compare, so Jamaat Islami is the party of Islam and Islam, okay? It's like the abstract category of Islam, but this is party of the ulama. So if I'm searching for Islam, everywhere Islam is there and is not there. But if I'm searching for the ulama, for example, in the street, and I have some problem to address, I can find ulama easily. They are there in the street and in the mosque and everywhere. So very decentralized, based in rural communities. That's why they are more successful as compared to the political Islamists as well. So these are my brief reflections on the question.
Yeah.
There are other questions as well.
Observations and your answers. I think we have to conclude now our today's webinar. And I would like to say thank you for all for joining us today for this insightful webinar on religion and politics in the changing Pakistan. And I hope that all of you found this session as enriching as and fruitful as I did. And before we wrap up, I want to express my deepest gratitude to our guest speaker, Professor Husnul Amin, and who shared with us some insightful observations on Pakistani political landscape. And we hope to benefit from his knowledge future, inshallah. And let me check the time. Yeah. And also a big thank you for all our incredible audience for your engagement and thoughtful questions. In addition, I would like to remind that we have another webinar coming up on the 15th of November, which is also on an interesting topic, Islamism, Arab Spring, and the ideological transformation. And the speaker of the event will be Dr. Muhammad Affan. He's the research director of Al Sharq Forum, which is a Turkey-based research organization. And I would like to invite you all to join in that event as well and share your critical questions and observations. And with this information, I conclude this webinar by reciting the Du'aul Kafara. Subhanallah. Thank you all for joining with us today, and we hope that you will join in the next event as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.